I was reading your book and I wrote this down. I wrote it down because I want to be straight to your words. You said in your book that race relations in America are more about how black you are not than how black you are. And that the more you step away from your blackness, the more the majority accepts you. Now, bruh, let's be real. That's a huge statement. Help me, well, not help me, help all of us understand what you mean by that.
Well, let's look at the terminology first, because some people, when they hear blackness, they think of color. Ooh. And we're not talking about color. All right. So when we say blackness, we're speaking more about culture. And uniquely, we have been broken up in this society, in this world that we're in, by our color. And so when you separate people by their color, they're going to develop similar cultural norms, right? If we were separated by something else, like if we were separated by the size of our fingers, we would have certain cultural norms that would be similar.
Yeah.
So Black people, because they've been separated by color, bond together and have these cultural norms. And people like to export some of our culture, the dancing, the music, some of these things, but not all of our culture.
Come on, bro, you teaching, yeah.
And so if you're representing all of your culture, specifically in a white dominated society, it's actually frowned upon. So I was telling a story of a good friend of mine who lives in my neighborhood, and he's an executive for a major company. A Black guy. He's on the phone talking to his staff, and I drove by him and I said, "What's going on, man?" He said, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And then he texted me later. He said, "Oh my gosh, Lecrae, my whole staff now knows what code switching is because they've never heard me talk like this before." And so, he had muted his Blackness in order to thrive in a white society. And that's a poem. I think it was Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It's kind of like you have to conform in order to fit in to the dominant society.
Do you think code switching is what we have to do, we should do, or should we be who we are in every single space?
Yeah, I don't think code switching is healthy for your mind. I don't think it's healthy mentally. And the reason why I would say that is because you're numbing who you are, who God has created you to be.
Come on, bro.
The dynamics and the beauty of who you are, you're numbing in order to, function.
Yeah.
And so you're selling yourself short. We would never imagine, American culture having to go to Japan or the Japanese business owners to come to America. We would never imagine them not bowing or not speaking their language. We would never force that idea upon them. But in America, there's such a disdain. There's such a historic, I would say, vitriol toward Black culture, Black people, that it's frowned upon when you exemplify any of those types of characteristics. And I just want people to know, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. You're made in the image of God. It's beautiful. Wear your locks and your braids and whatever. Be who God made you to be.
You know, it's so funny, man. I was on a plane. It's actually, I won't say the particular airline, but this was an American airline coming back from Israel. And you know how Muslims, at particular times, they have to pray. And so on this flight, where I would say predominantly the majority of the people on the flight were American, two Muslims got up in the middle of the night, in the middle of this time, and started praying. They didn't care about adapting to our culture and our ways. They said, no matter where I am, I'm going to do what I need to be doing and be who I am.
Yep.
And right then and there was the time that switched for me. I'm going to be real with y'all on this show because it's Lecrae. When I first joined the team here at Ramsey Solutions, I started to adapting myself every time I got on the Dave Ramsey show to be pleasing to his audience. That's when I started noticing, I started getting a lot of negative reviews. After I saw that, that's when I said, yo, if he could be himself and not be uncomfortable in front of all of us, how come you can't be yourself in front of all of them? The moment I sat there and said, all right, I'm going to be me on the show, That was the moment that I started realizing people actually receive me better as my authentic self than me just switching up to please them and to sound like Dave and to sound like some of our other personalities. Yeah. And I agree with you. We should not code switch. Now, we should learn to adapt, adjust, and overcome. We should learn to adapt to our environments, but not change who we are as individuals.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I agree with you. I think, obviously, everyone has to adapt in some sense in order to navigate life, right? There's certain ethic or cultural codes that you function by. Yeah. And that's a different scenario. That's a different story. That's just general speak. But I think when something that you should not be ashamed of is made into something, a picture of shame, that's a problem, right? Like the Bible talks about Jesus despising the shame. Like they tried to shame him for who he really was, King of the Jews, get out of here. And I find it funny because when I'm around my white friends, none of them ever switch up the way they talk to be more comfortable around me or my black friends.
We do that. Come on.
We do that. You know what I mean? Oh, how are you doing today? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
They don't ever bring up the latest episode of Martin that they watch. Why am I bringing up Seinfeld? I don't watch baseball. I watch basketball.
Right. Come on.
Why am I trying to keep up with that's not acceptable. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think they lose out on the dynamic of who we're created to be and how we can contribute to the greater good of our world and our society.
Man, you're hitting it on, man. It just goes back to God fearfully and wonderfully made Lecrae. He fearfully and wonderfully made Anthony O'Neill. I have flaws, but God made me, and he already knew these are going to be Anthony O'Neill's flaws. But I still called you for a particular reason and for a particular purpose, so be you.